Why do learners misbehave in class? It's a pretty universal question, right? I mean, think back to your own school days. You can probably picture that one kid who is just always acting up. Or, maybe on a bad day, that kid was you. We've all seen classroom disruptions, but what's actually driving them? And maybe more importantly, how in the world do educators stand in front of a room full of 30 energetic minds and keep total control? Well, welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack the actual incredible toolkit that teachers use every single day. You see, student behavior can often feel like a total psychological mystery. You might scratch your head wondering why a sudden disruption just happens out of nowhere. But a classroom isn't just a room with desks. It's a really complex, living ecosystem. So when a disruption happens, it's not just random chaos. There's actually always a root cause, a psychological trigger, and, as you'll see, a highly specific strategy designed to handle it. So today, we're demystifying that whole process. We are diving deep into the art and science of classroom management. We'll look directly at the real frameworks that transform a potentially chaotic room into a highly productive environment for learning. It's honestly fascinating stuff. It blends psychology, environmental design, and just pure real-time leadership. Here's the game plan for This Explainer. First, defining classroom management. Second, setting the physical stage. Third, why learners misbehave. Fourth, behavior management approaches. And finally, number 5, mastering group dynamics. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, defining classroom management. Because before we get into the tactics, we really need to understand the overarching goal here. Okay, so the formal definition is the arrangement and appropriate use of all resources, that's material, human, and time, available in the classroom to enhance learning outcomes and balance menial tasks. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that management is not just about punishing bad behavior. No way. It's this complex orchestration. A teacher is literally managing the clock, the physical materials, and the human beings in the room, all at the exact same time. The ultimate goal isn't just dead silence. It's to actually induce learning while smoothly handling those repetitive, menial tasks like efficiently handing out worksheets or taking attendance without losing the room's focus. Moving right along to section 2, setting the physical stage. A teacher's job actually starts way before the morning bell even rings or the students take their seats. This is what's known as instructional management. Effective teachers are proactively organizing a safe classroom environment. They strategically arrange the furniture, the learning centers, and the materials to optimize learning and, this is key here, to reduce distractions. You've got to think of the physical setup of the room as a sort of silent manager. By strategically organizing the furniture, say putting the pencil sharpener as far away from the main discussion circle as possible, a teacher is reducing distractions and literally stopping bad behavior before it even has the physical space to happen. The environment itself is doing a ton of the heavy lifting. All right, section 3, why learners misbehave. Because let's be real, no physical arrangement is totally perfect, and human nature is always going to play its part. So let's shift from the external physical environment to the internal psychology of the student. Why exactly do learners misbehave in the first place? To figure this out, we have to recognize a really fundamental human truth. Learners desperately want to be accepted and liked, especially by their peers. That feeling of acceptance, it's a total prerequisite for appropriate behavior. When a student doesn't feel that natural acceptance, they'll exhibit all sorts of behaviors just to fill the void. In fact, there are 4 mistaken goals for misbehavior. First up is attention getting, tapping a pencil loudly just so someone looks at them. Second is power seeking, like actively refusing to do the work just to prove their dominance. Third is revenge seeking, where they lash out because they feel wronged. And fourth is withdrawal, just putting their head down on the desk and shutting the whole world out. When teachers understand these 4 goals, it helps them see right past the disruption and spot the unmet need that's actually driving it. Which brings us to section 4, approaches to behavior management. Now that we understand the why behind the misbehavior, let's look at the how. How do teachers actually deal with all this in real time? Well, here is the teacher's tactical toolkit. It's basically a full menu of distinct behavioral management approaches. We've got the assertive approach, the business academic approach, behavior modification, group managerial, group guidance, the acceptance approach, and the success approach. Teachers are trained in these different philosophies so they can pivot on the fly, adapting to whatever unique needs pop up in their classroom on any given day. Let's actually break down 3 of the most contrasting styles here. First, take a look at the assertive approach.
The focus here is strictly on rules and consequences. The teacher and the learners agree on clear rules, and if those are broken, the teacher responds quickly and directly. It's firm, strict, and immediate. Now contrast that with the behavior modification approach. This one relies on the idea that behavior is shaped pretty much entirely by the environment. So instead of focusing heavily on the root psychological cause, it uses an elaborate, systematic setup of rewards and punishments to reinforce the good habits and inhibit the bad ones. And finally, we have the business academic approach. The focus here is simply time on task. The strategy is upbeat, it's fast-paced, and it's all about keeping the learners so incredibly busy with exercises and group work that there is literally no room or time left for them to misbehave. So you see, 3 very different strategies, but all can be highly effective depending on the specific classroom context.
And that perfectly sets up Section 5, Mastering Group Dynamics. Because dealing with just one student is one thing, but remember, teachers are managing up to 30 students all at once. When you're managing a whole class, the main goal is to prevent a tiny problem from spreading and completely derailing the group's collective momentum. The group managerial approach actually requires 3 highly active steps. Step 1, DISIS techniques. This is your immediate intervention, making direct, assertive eye contact, advising the learner to stop and monitoring them until they comply. Keep it brief, shut it down. Step 2 is movement management. This is all about the physical flow of the room. It means gaining their attention before starting a lesson or actively changing seating arrangements to break up those 2 whispering best friends in the back. And step 3 is group focus. This is about realigning the room's energy. You're clarifying the task, modeling exactly what appropriate behavior looks like in that moment, and monitoring the noise levels. It is an incredibly active, constantly moving management style. Which brings us to a really core tenet from what's known as the success approach. It says, behavior is a matter of choice. Good or bad behavior results from good or bad choices. And honestly, that's a profound final thought for us today. After all the physical staging, all that psychological analysis, and the group dynamic interventions, the ultimate goal of classroom management isn't just to force blind compliance. It's to empower learners to recognize their own autonomy. It's to help them understand that their behavior is a choice they own. A truly great teacher constructs an environment where making the good choice is just the most natural thing in the world. So looking at your own life, or even your workplace, are you simply demanding compliance from people, or are you actually designing an environment that guarantees success?